Before you read any more of this story, beware, otherwise, the same thing could happen to you. So you have continued to read, so I will carry on writing, just for you. My name is Alan Tubia and I am a fiction writer of short romantic love stories. My wife's name is Jessica, and we have been married for about 6 years now. I go under the pen name of Juliet Tubia. I do this mainly for sales reasons as my romance is usually quite steamy, and with a woman writing it, it seems to attract more people to read my books. I have an office at the bottom of our garden, really, it's a shed done out as an office. I even got carpet on the floor and pictures on the wall. I've been a quite successful writer, well enough so that my wife didn't have to worry about money. But there has been a drawback or two. One is that nobody knows it is me, Alan Walters, who is writing the stories. They all think, including my publisher, that Juliet Tubia is the writer. I tried writing under my real name once, never again. It was the biggest flop I had ever seen. So, Juliet Tubia just kept writing. Whoopee, the second problem was that there are only so many versions of the same story you can write, and I was fast approaching that line. So, one day I decided to write about something completely different. What made me choose this type of story I will never know. I had been reading the story about transvestism, on how people change into their rightful sex, fall in love and have a happy ending. Well, that got me thinking if I wrote the same type of stories I would normally write but change the characters into people who, I think the word is transformation from a man to a woman or vice versa. I ran the idea past my wife Jessica, and she thought it was a brilliant idea. She was even quite excited about it. She said, this could be a new chapter in our lives. So, off I went to the newsagent and bought quite a few books on it, then went on the internet to find out as much as I could, and there were loads, a proper AZ on every aspect of transvestism, transgender and transsexual. It seemed really confusing to me. As far as I knew, I had never met a transgender person before, or had I? So off to my office I went and read up on all of it, or as much as I could understand. I sat there for 2 days, pad and pencil in hand, waiting for that inspiration to click in, but it never came. I just couldn't imagine why a person would want to change sex or want to wear women's clothes. The idea eluded me. This made me unable to make my characters come to life. I was perplexed. So, I went to my wife Jessica and explained the situation, saying to her, how can I build my characters when I don't know how they feel or act when they're dressed? She thought for a little while and said, are you sure you don't know anybody like that so you could ask them? I just smiled at her and replied, if I did, how would I know if they were or not? Can you imagine going up to a woman and asking if she was originally a man? I think I would get the biggest slap ever, let alone the police being called. She laughed and said, I can just imagine you trying to explain to the police why you were asking. I would love to hear their reply. I will tell you what, I will get some of my old clothes out and I will help you dress and act like a woman, to see if that spark becomes a flame for you. I agreed somewhat reluctantly, but I thought it might work. I might be able to get into the mindset of these people. The next morning my wife said, right, if you're going to try this, then you must do it properly. I replied, okay, here goes nothing. I had to have a shower and, using my wife's nair, strip all the hair off my body and legs, shall we say from the eyebrows down? When I came out of the shower my whole body felt different. I could even feel the slight drought from the door. My body seemed to be so sensitive to everything. Jessica gave me some lotion to put on to counteract the slight redness I got from the nair. I said to Jessica, I don't know, I'm not sure of this idea now. She replied, if you want to experience and have some insight into something, then you have got to try it. She got me there all right. She got me out some of her own clothes for me to wear. She put them on the bed and smiling said, okay, off you go, get yourself dressed. I looked at what she had brought me out. I said to her, you want me to wear all of this? Well, she said, that's what most women wear. There were a pair of black silk panties, a black padded bra, a suspender belt complete with stockings, a white petticoat, a red blouse with long puffed-up sleeves, a black pencil skirt and a pair of 2-inch heeled shoes. Well, go on, get dressed then. She was smiling all the time. I had no idea how to dress properly, even though I had seen my wife dress hundreds of times. First, I put my panties on. I will say that they felt rather comfortable. Next came the bra. What a laugh that was. My wife was almost wetting herself with laughter. I put my arm through the straps and pulled the ends together behind my back, like I had seen my wife do. There was one problem: for the love of me could I get them damn hooks and eyes clipped together, let alone get all two of the hooks matching the eyes. It took me about 15 minutes to get them together, and I think that was just luck. Also, now my arms were aching with the effort of being twisted behind me. Next was my suspender belt. This was not too bad as I had a thought about doing it up at the front, then twisting around. I was quite proud of myself for working that out. Now trying to put stocking on if you have never worn them before is not like putting on socks, where you grab the top and hoist them up. My wife stopped me just before I tried to do the same and said, "I will show you how to put stockings on, otherwise you will just ruin a good pair of mine for nothing." So she showed me how you gather them up, then slide them up your legs and clip them into the suspender belt, making sure the suspenders are underneath your panties, otherwise going to the loo is impossible because you can't pull your panties down. I admit I had never thought of that. I hate clever people. The petticoat was easy, all I had to do was slip it over my head. Job done. Then came the blouse. Why, oh why, do they put the buttons on the wrong side and make them so small? That was what I would call a very fiddly job, but I did it. Hooray! The pencil skirt was something I definitely needed help with. Jessica was still laughing as I stepped into the skirt and tried to pull it up when I did my petticoat rode up with it. I tried holding it down with one hand and pulling my skirt up with the other, pulling my skirt up a bit then my petticoat. Both were total failures. Jessica stopped laughing for a moment and said, "Hold your petticoat between your knees, then pull your skirt up, then all you have to do after that is to straighten your petticoat." By this time I felt I had run a marathon. I flumped out of bed as Jessica passed me my shoes. I slipped them on, a little tight but wearable. Then I stood up, should I say tried to stand up and walk. Jessica with tears in her eyes said, "Take smaller steps and you will be able to walk better." I did this, and it worked. I found walking much easier. But the restriction of my skirt, the feeling of a tight bra, the billowing of my silk blouse on my body, the rubbing of my stockings together as I walked or even sat down, was so alien. It was a fantastic feeling. I wondered if this was how these people felt. I said to Jessica, "I'm just going to." That's as far as I got, before she said, "You're not finished yet." I replied, "What? Makeup? You haven't put any on yet." I don't think I need to go that far, do I? Well, if you want to know, then you have got to go the whole way, but don't worry, I will do it for you. I replied, "Thank you, my sweetness," with a slight hint of sarcasm. My makeup took Jessica about 20 minutes. Then she brushed my hair a different way and put some clips in. Afterwards, she said, "Well, go and look at yourself, sweetie, and see what you think." My jaw just dropped. Was that me really standing there? Jessica quickly took some photographs of me, telling me to pose sexy like. I think my jaw was still on the ground. I said, "Blimey, is that really me? I look like a woman." She just replied, "That's what you trying to look like, you Wally." I just kept turning and turning around on the spot looking at myself. Then a voice chirped up, "Are we admiring oneself then, sweetie?" I had to go and sit down and have a drink. Jessica joined me. "What shall I call you when you're dressed, I wonder?" "I know, Juliet." She chuckled. "Thank you, my sweetness," I replied sarcastically. "Right now you're ready, Juliet, it's time for you to go to work." "So off to the shed with you, girl." I replied, "Yes, ma'am." As I walked down to my office, I automatically started swinging my hips with every step. I didn't know Jessica was watching through the window and smiling. I felt so free in a skirt and blouse, and my underwear just complemented everything. My mind took me back many years when I was small. The girl and I who lived next door used to play dress up quite a lot, and I loved trying to wear a dress and high heels. It must have been quite funny to watch from my parents, but I think most children go through that phase. I entered my office and sat down. The feelings of what I was wearing were still with me. I tried to put them out of my mind and concentrate on my story, but every time I moved, I was reminded about my clothes and underwear. It was sending shivers down my spine. I must admit by the end of 4 hours I had written about 100 words, and thought for the rest of the time about my clothes and why I was enjoying wearing them, plus looking at the clothes other girls were wearing in the magazines, and wondering if I would look good in them. I finished work that day and went indoors. Jess asked me, "Well, how did Juliet get on today? Did it help her with her stories?" Of course, me being me said, "Yes, it helped a great deal. I might even do it tomorrow if that's okay with you." Jess replied, "If it helps you write, you can carry on with it until you finish your stories." I said, "Great, that will be really helpful. Now let me pop upstairs and change." Jessica turned around to me and said, "Keep it on for the moment, tea is ready, you can shower and change afterwards, if you want, Juliet." I looked at her and we both just smiled, one of those fake smiles you do now and again. After dinner I went up to shower and change. When I took my bra off, I noticed that it had left its mark on my back and shoulders. For some reason I was quite proud of them. Jessica popped in while I was in the shower and said, "I've put your bedclothes on the chair for you, okay?" I replied, "Thank you, Jess." Of course, what did I find on the chair? A long silk nightie and a matching pair of panties. I shouted out, "Very funny, where are my pajamas though?" Jess shouted back from the bedroom, "If you are dressing as a woman during the day, then you can dress like one at night." This was said as I heard her laughing. I said, laughing quietly, "Right, if she wants to play that game, let it be." So I put on the nightie and panties and shouted out, "Jess, where's the night cream I can use on my face tonight until I can buy some for myself?" She retorted, "Well, you're not using mine. Mine is for the beautiful people, not the uglies like you." We both burst out laughing. That night we both had a very exhausting night, whether it was the clothes or not, but we were both more passionate than we had been for a long time. The next morning came, we both looked at other in our nighties and laughed. "Now come on, Juliet, hurry up and get dressed, you got to go to work. You can wear what you wore yesterday but change your panties, and you can try to do your own makeup and hair as well, as I have to go out shopping, and you know the saying, a woman's work is never done." Then she gave me a kiss and went upstairs to change and then go out. So, I went upstairs and changed and tried to do my makeup as Jess had done. I'm too embarrassed to say what it ended up looking like, but a child of 5 could have done better. It was that bad, that once I started laughing, I couldn't stop. Then my mascara started to run, which made me laugh even more. It took a good 15 minutes for me to calm myself down, then to try again. This time it wasn't so bad, for the first time anyway, as I tried to convince myself. Then off to the office I went. This time I was getting, I think, why some people like to dress up. The feeling was fantastic, and I seemed to take on a happier and calmer persona. And I liked the feel of all the clothes I was wearing. As I sat down in my chair, I thought about what I should write. Then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I decided for the next 3 weeks I would keep a diary of myself and what I was feeling, and also how Jess coped with everything. This would give me a good outline of my story, which I hope you are reading now. When Jess came back about 4 hours later, I told her about my idea, then asking her, "Well, what do you think? If you're not happy with the idea, then we will just forget it, no problem." "Well," she replied, "let's get this straight then. For 3 weeks you want to act and dress as a woman." "Well, not all the time," I said. She replied, "What do you mean not all the time? If you want to dress for 3 weeks, you dress for 3 weeks 24/7. I was stunned. 24/7 was not what I was expecting at all. "You mean that if I dress, it's got to be all the time for the whole of the 3 weeks? She smiled and said, "Look, if you want to know what it feels like, then the only way is to do it as properly, not off and on. Don't you agree, Juliet, my sweet?" I walked into that one. I thought, well, anyway, what do you think about my idea? I think it's going to be lots of fun to have another woman around. Maybe we can even go out together? I just replied, "As soon as the cows fly, I promise we will do that, sweetie." We then both laughed. So, we agreed. I will admit I wasn't too sure about this dressing all the time, but deep down I think I was looking forward to it. I mean, it's not like I was going to leave the house or anything. well, except to go to my office, but that was in the back garden, so no one was going to see me anyway. I finished up writing in my office and went indoors ready for my tea. I was starving. Jess said to me, "I'm so glad you're in early, Juliet, it means you can help me do the tea." I just laughed. Big mistake. Jessica turned around and looking directly at me, said, "Come on now, Juliet, when a woman's finished work, she still has to come home and cook, as well as doing the washing and ironing, so what would you like to do? The cooking or ironing? I thought this is only the second day, she's going to have fun with me for the next 3 weeks." So smiling I said, "You cook, I will iron." She looked back at me smiling and said, "That's a good girl." Again, that night was unbelievable for both of us. We did things to each other that we had never done before. The following day, Jess said, "I've got to go out for a couple of hours, so you can have a lie-in until I get back. Would you like that, Juliet?" "Yes, please," I said. "I think I need the rest." She laughed. When Jess came back, she told me that she had been to the thrift shop and bought me a few clothes. I said, "What for?" "Well, you can't keep wearing the same clothes, can you? So I have bought you a couple of dresses and some stocking, the rest you can borrow from me." I thought that was a good idea at that time, so I said, "Juliet, thanks you, my sweet." Well, for the next 2 weeks I dressed as a woman, doing my own makeup under Jessica's supervision, telling me what colors go with what. And learning to do my own hair in different styles. My hair was shoulder length, so she had lots of fun teaching me how to make it look different. I carried on helping in the house, learning some basic meals to cook, even helping with the washing, and learning about not putting colors with whites. Whoops, in fact, we both were having a wonderful time together. Jess said, "It's so nice to have another woman around to share the chores and talk to. I think this is the best idea you have ever had, Juliet." It was around this time that I noticed, even with our joking around, that Jessica was now referring to me as Juliet all the time. I couldn't remember when she last called me Alan. The problem was I loved it all. I was dreading when the 3 weeks were up. I felt that I was going to lose someone who I had got used to being, in fact, a part of myself. I started to get a bit down. Jess noticed this and asked me what was up. I just palmed her off with a feeble excuse about the story. "You need a break," she said. "Come on, get yourself dolled up a bit. We're going out for a drive and a meal." I was horrified. I said, "I can't go out like this. What if someone recognizes me?" She replied, "Look, Juliet, you live in the house, you work in the office and the garden. Who knows, you really accept me? You can easily pass as a woman. You have picked up so many female traits in the last 3 weeks. No one will even give you a second look, sweetie." I had no answer to this, as I knew she was right. "Can we make it somewhere far away then?" I said. "Of course we can, anything for the love of my life, Juliet." So, we went upstairs and changed. I wore a black lace dress with short sleeves and a high collar. Jessica wore a red dress with no sleeves at all and a very low neckline. We both wore 2.5-inch heel black matching shoes. Jess also helped me with my makeup as I was starting to shake with nerves, so she helped me put my hair into a high ponytail. "Are you ready then, my sweet?" Jess called out. I replied, "I don't think this is a good idea, Jess. Why can't 2 girls go out for a drive and a meal together then?" "Of course they can," I said. "Well, come on then, get into the car and we're away." As we drove along, I kept looking down or away from the window in case anybody saw me. Jess just laughed and said, "Come on now, Juliet, enjoy everything. I think it's what you really want, isn't it?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "Come on, sweetness, I'm not daft. These last 2 to 3 weeks you have thoroughly enjoyed being a woman. Don't deny it. Everything I have asked you to do, from the cleaning to the cooking, let alone the ironing, you have reveled in it. You have taken being a woman, like a duck takes to water. Just think, it didn't take much persuasion for you to come out today all dressed up, did it?" I did not know what to say. I just went very red. "Don't worry, my sweetness, I still love you, but I love Juliet more." "What?" I said. "But I'm Juliet." She replied quickly, "Yes, and I love her to bits." I just did not know what to say. What was happening here? Was Jess having a breakdown? I was getting really worried. Then she burst out laughing. All she said was gotcha. I could have murdered her at that precise moment. Then I started to laugh as well. In fact, we had to pull over because we were laughing so much. I'm sorry, she said, but I couldn't resist it. But it's all true, isn't it? Still laughing, I said, what's true? What I said, you have taken to it like a duck takes to water, and you thoroughly enjoy being a woman. Come on now, be really honest with yourself. She was still laughing as she was talking. Don't worry, but I've noticed so many things about you recently, and how you changed, much for the better I might add. Even at night you have changed everything, and I love it. I thought on what Jess had been saying, and as normal she was right. The more I thought, the more how happier I had been. It was as if a great big load had been taken off my shoulders. What load I don't know, but it was gone. We arrived at the pub Jess had selected. My nerves seemed to have faded a lot, until Jess said, "Come on now, Juliet, I'm dying for a drink and some food, are you?" I looked at her and said, "Yes, I'm ready, my sweet." We had a really good time, and no one even glanced at me, or took any notice of me at all. Sulk. When we left, Jess said to me, "Well, what did you think of your first excursion as a woman? Did it feel good?" All I could reply was, to be really honest, I loved it. My adrenaline was pumping like never before. As we drove back, Jess pulled up in a lay-by, saying, "I think we have some serious talking to do, sweetie. But we must be totally honest with each other or it won't work." Okay. I nodded my head. I was pretty sure what she was going to say, but I had to wait and see, as I could be totally wrong. Jess said, "Right, I will start." A huge doubt came over me. Now this started as a laugh more than anything, but in this short space of time things have changed. In some ways the change has been dramatic, but it's all been in good ways. I'm not sure how to put this to you, but I want an honest answer. Do you understand? Again, I just nodded. My heart started beating faster and faster. I even started sweating, something I rarely do. Jess continued very bluntly, "Now, Alan, would you like to dress as a woman full-time?" The blood in my face drained. 1,000 thoughts went through my mind. If I said yes, would she leave me? I couldn't bear that. If I said no, I think I would be lying to us both, and that might produce a wedge between us. Oh hell, what should I say? It was Jess who answered for me. "By your silence, I think you're trying to make up your mind what to tell me, or what you think I want to hear. Is that right?" I just looked at her, and with a tear in my eye I said, "Yes, my love, I just don't want to lose you. I love you so much." She leant over and gave me a great big hug and a kiss, saying, "Well, I will make the decision for you then. I love it when you're a woman. You're a much better person, even better than the man I married. I would love you to stay dressed all the time, and I still want you to be my lover, woman or not." We then both hugged each other and began to cry. On the way home, I said, "Thank you, Jess." She smiled and said, "First things first, I am not going to keep calling you Juliet, so from now on it's Jowls, okay?" We laughed together as I said, "Yes, ma'am." A few more weeks went by when Jess said, "I'm going shopping for a few hours. Jowls, phone if you want me." "See you later, my love." A couple of hours later, Jess came back and loaded with bags. She called me from my office saying, "Jowls, come up here a minute please. I have something for you." "Oh, I'm glad you up, sweetie. I have bought you some things." "I mean, you can't keep borrowing my stuff forever, can you? So I have gone out and bought you some stuff of your own." "Oh, good grief, woman," I said. "Now don't get your knickers in a twist." She replied, "Let me show you what I have bought you. I think you will really love them." She opened one bag, and it was 6 pairs of different colored frilly panties, then 6 matching padded bras. I had petticoats, suspender belts, a waist-high corset, lots of stockings, and my own makeup set. Then she pulled out from a separate bag 3 skirts, 4 silk blouses, and 3 dresses. All the dresses and skirts were tight ones which would show off my figure. "Well, my darling Jowls, what do you think? Do you like them? I think you will look so pretty in them. Go and try them on for me, my love." So for the next 2 hours I gave her a fashion show of her own. She had a very good eye on what would suit me or not, as everything fitted me like a glove and made me feel really special. I think she could see by my eyes how wonderful I thought they were. I couldn't thank her enough. I had now been dressing for 3 months now, and we were both happy with the results. I now cooked more, cleaned and ironed without being asked to, and at night our lovemaking was out of this world. Jess began treating me more and more like a woman every day, and sometimes at night. Well, at breakfast one morning, which I had made for us both, the subject of hormones came up. Jess asked if I would like to start on them, saying, "It will give you a womanly figure and also some breasts." She was grinning by now. The excitement was like an electric shock going through my body. Smiling at her, I said, I would like that a lot." The following week I started taking my pills, 1 in the evening and 2 at night. This carried on for a few months. I know it could have been physiological, but I felt if I could feel my body and breasts changing, even though the tape measure said different. Lying tape measure. Well, to carry on. A letter came through our door. It was addressed to Ms. Jowls Tubia. I called Jess in and showed her the envelope. "Who is that from?" she inquired. I just replied, "I haven't got a clue. I didn't think anybody knew me here as that." "Well, open it then, Jowls. I'm dying to know." It read, "Dear Ms. Tubia, I am pleased to inform you that you have been selected as Short Story Romance Writer of the Year. You have been chosen by a panel of judges from the Writers Guild. The presentation for this will be held in Covent Garden Hippodrome on the November 27th, 2019. It will consist of a Writers Guild certificate which will be used on any further books you write plus a check for £25,000. Please find attached further instructions. Congratulations, Julian Crouch." "What is it?" shouted Jessica. I just stood there in a trance. Jess shouted again, "Tell me for goodness sake, woman." I just gave her the letter. She read it, then went ecstatic, saying, £25,000 and your book sales will triple, thanks to this." "I can't take it," I said solemnly. Jess looked astounded. "What? Why not?" "Because I'm not Juliet Tubia. I am Alan Tubia. There is no Juliet Tubia. I can't go and collect anything because it will all be made out to Juliet Tubia." I turned away because I knew I was going to cry. Jess thought for a moment, then came over to me and gave me a great big hug, saying, "We will work it out, don't worry, Jowls my love." We then went into the lounge and I poured us a very large scotch each. We sat there in silence, then Jess suddenly jumped up, nearly knocking my drink over, saying, "I've got it, tell me I'm clever, Jowls." So I looked at her and said, "You're clever, Jess. Don't be snarky with me, young lady, otherwise I won't tell you what I have thought of. Right first, I want you to go to the mirror and have a good look, then come back and tell me who you are." I went to the mirror and looked closely. Who did I see? I saw Juliet Tubia. I could see where Jess was going, but they will want proof I'm her, like a birth certificate and driving license, and I haven't got either, I sobbed. With a smile on her face, Jess said to me, "If we go ahead with what I think we should do, there won't be any turning back, you know that." "What shall we do then?" I said. "There is still 7 months to go before the ceremony, so in that time we are going to change your name by deed poll from Alan to Juliet. That on paper makes you a woman. Next we change your driving license the same, you now have 2 forms of identity in the name of Juliet Tubia. Next we see the doctor and ask him if there is any way to speed up the process the pills are doing to you. Don't forget we pay a lot of money to him, so I can't see a problem. Then last but not least you will have to relearn everything, so you act, think and become Juliet. I warn you it's going to be hard, but we can make it fun as well. What do you think, my lover?" I was blown away with the idea. I said, "Do you think it will work?" Jess said, "It will, even if you die trying." We both laughed and the hopelessness of my situation started to lift. The next day we saw our doctor and roughly explained my predicament, telling him that I wanted to transition later anyway. Not quite true. So after a lengthy and costly discussion he agreed to supplement my pills with what he called boosters. "You should start to see a change in about 2 weeks. He added, "But I still need to see you every month without fail, for your checkups." We thanked him. As we left, he said, "Good luck to you both." We thought that was quite sweet. Next came the name change and driving license, when we explained that Alan was becoming Juliet, and we gave them the name of the doctor concerned. There was no problem, thank goodness. So here we were, I was now officially Juliet Tubia. That was awesome. I said to Jess. Right, Missy, now the real work begins. For the next 3 months, apart from our night escapades, it was work, work and work. I had to learn how to walk in 4-inch heels. Jess said, if you can walk in these with ease, then you can walk in anything. Then I had to learn women's mannerisms, how they always use their hands for everything, their facial expressions, how to sit and stand, how to eat. And I thought seriously there wasn't much to learn. We went out to different places at least 3 times a week, to make my outings a matter of fact to me, and the hardest for me I thought was to learn to talk to people as if were an everyday normal occurrence for me. In that time the boosters the doctor gave me had started working. The first thing I noticed was my nipples were getting very tender, which Jess was taking advantage of every night. Then my areola around my nipples began to grow and change color, it became a dark brown. My hips and bum ached as my breasts started to grow, my facial features grew softer as did my skin. Alan was now fading away fast, but I didn't have any regrets at all. Strange, isn't it? 2 weeks before we had to leave, Jess and I both had a manicure and pedicure. I had my ears pierced twice on each ear. Then we went to the hairdressers. This was my first time, so Jess took the lead. She explained to the woman that we were going to collect an award for writing in Covent Garden and it was quite a posh do, so can she do anything with our hair? We would leave it all. She booked us in for the following day, at 10:30. Then we went dress shopping. We were after nothing flashy but something which would make us stand out a bit. After hours of looking we found them. As you can see from the picture below, which was taken on that presentation day. We both looked gorgeous. It wasn't long after that, Alan deserted Jessica, which led to her divorcing him on the grounds of his desertion. 3 weeks later, in a quiet village, Juliet and Jessica got married and became Juliet and Jessica Tubia. Our honeymoon was a suite on the coast of Africa for 3 weeks. I still carried on successfully as a writer, especially with my books carrying the seal of the Writers Guild certificate. 2 years later we were still very happily married. Lots of love and kisses.